Chapter 435. A true villain is not to be feared, because all his overt schemes are not schemes, but overt schemes. The most frightening thing was the fake monarch. Jun Shizhu was also helpless. She also wanted to make a fortune in secret. It wouldn't be difficult for her to conceal her wealth from Mo Qingwu today. However, that expert would come in the future. How could such a peerless expert not see that she was small in comparison? That would only backfire on him. Perhaps the dark bamboo would be destroyed because of this. Therefore, after thinking for a long time, she decided to be honest with him now. We are the underworld forces. And, isn't this what the underworld forces pursue? Jun Shizhu said, let those fake monarchs cry. This is how I am. Miss Mo, you have nowhere to go for the time being. So, why don't you stay here for the time being? Jun Shizhu asked with a smile. Then, I still have to go to the Kanglan battlefront. Mo Qingwu opened her big round eyes. It doesn't matter. We are also going to the Kanglan battlefront. Jun Shizhu chuckled. It won't be a problem if we travel together. However, are you really going to the Kanglan battlefront to look for Mo Tianji? No. Mo Qingwu recalled how second brother had lowered his head and refused to look at her when she was at her most helpless. Suddenly, her heart ached, and her eyes reddened again. I'm not going to look for him. Oh! Jun Jingzhu was stunned. Then who are you looking for? I am looking for Big Brother Jiyu Duxing, Big Brother Jimo, Big Brother Luo Kudi, Big Brother Dong Wushong, Big Brother Ji Biyu Tong. Mo Qingwu counted with her fingers one by one. Ah! Jun Shizhu. I didn't think that this little girl would have such a wide circle of friends. She even has 4 of the top 10 new young experts. Moreover, she also has the sole successor of the stealing god and thieving ghost. Who are they to you? They are my elder brother Chu's brothers. Mo Qingwu said with certainty, I'll find them and wait for elder brother Chu to come. Brother Chu? Jun Shizhu wrinkled her brows. She suddenly recalled the words Chu Xiaoyang, Chu Dieyang that she had said in the exam. Her heart suddenly moved, and she said, your elder brother Chu. Chu Yang? The famous king of Hell Chu of the lower 3 heavens? Mo Qingwu blinked a few times. She had already regained her usual shrewdness and said, yes, that's my elder brother Chu Yang. Humph, since I'm such an important person in your heart, then surely you won't dare to do anything to my elder brother Chu Yang. King of Hell Chu has sent 3 people. Jun Shizhu's complexion sank. She then gently shifted her gaze towards Jun Lulu. She pondered for a long while, and then said, Lu, King of Hell Chu, has a friendship with you, right? I heard that King of Hell Chu helped you a lot when you broke through the heavenly zither sound face. Yes. Jun Lulu had always been grateful to Chu Yang in her heart. So, she replied without hesitation, that King of Hell Chu Yang is indeed a rare man in this world. Mo Qingwu's eyes suddenly flashed with a proud light. Her small face seemed to be glowing under this banner. She was so excited that her delicate body began to tremble. My brother Chu Yang. Brother Chu Yang. He was well versed in both martial arts and was a rare man in the world. This is the evaluation of my elder brother Chu Yang. Did brother Chu Yang teach you how to play the zither? Mo Qingwu curiously looked at Jun Lulu. Yes, Jun Lulu replied with a smile, it's all thanks to him. Mo Qingwu suddenly felt stifled in her heart. She looked at Jun Lulu's eyes with intense hostility. Mo Qingwu obviously didn't know anything about love at her age. She also didn't have such thoughts. But, she didn't know why she felt hostility towards this banner. She just felt uncomfortable. Humph. Her small face turned away, and she angrily turned her head away. Oh my. Jun Lulu pointed at her in amazement, and laughed, this little girl is jealous, ha ha. Mo Qingwu pouted her small mouth, and sulked. Jun Lulu deliberately teased her. She then said in a nostalgic tone, also, Chu Yang is very handsome. His voice is very pleasant to listen to. He plays the zither well. Little Wu, have you ever heard your brother Chu Yang play the zither? Humph. Mo Qingwu's voice became even louder. She felt extremely aggrieved. I haven't heard it. Boo-hoo, brother Chu Yang plays the zither for this woman. He doesn't play for me. Boo-hoo, I'm so sad. Chu Yang would have spat out a mouthful of blood if he were here. I can't play the zither. Who did I play it for? I'm being wrongly accused. Ha ha ha. Jun Lulu giggled. She looked like a little hen who had stolen food to eat. Well, little Wu saw Chu Yang and asked him to play for you. Then, she left. Jun Shizhu came out to smooth things over. She thought that Chu Yang's zither skills were naturally good since he could instruct Jun Lulu to play the zither. Wouldn't playing the zither and coaxing a little girl be a piece of cake? Little did he know that these words had put King of Hell Chu in an awkward situation where he was at the end of his rope and had nowhere to go. Mo Ching Wu's eyes lit up. Well, elder sister, since this is the case, should we stop extorting money from the Mo clan? Should we cancel our original plan? Jun Lulu glanced at Mo Ching Wu. She stopped laughing and asked Jun Shizhu. Oh, that won't do. Jun Shizhu flatly refused. She coldly said, we are a force of the underworld. So, we can't lose our position as an underworld force. Ah! Jun Lulu blinked. She was extremely surprised. Mo Ching Wu also blinked her eyes in confusion. But, wouldn't little Wu have to return the money to them once they get it? Perhaps, they would force her to get married once she goes back. Jun Lulu was somewhat anxious. Ah Lu, you've been with me for so many years. How can you not recognize our position? Jun Shizhu helplessly frowned and said, who am I? I'm Jun Shizhu. Hey! The Mo clan wants to take her away after getting the money. How can they let her go so easily? Jun Shizhu held Mo Ching Wu in her arms. She mischievously smiled. Little Wu is such a treasure. How can I return her to them? That would be a dream. Ah! You won't return her. Could it be that you want to eat 10 million for free? Jun Lulu was surprised. This isn't good, right? Because we are an underworld force. What is an underworld force? This is an underworld force. Jun Shizhu said in a profound manner. Jun Lulu was obviously confused and disoriented. Elder sister, you often say that even a thief has a moral code. Yes, even a thief has a moral code. This is my moral code. Jun Shizhu glared at her. What I get is my moral code. What's the matter? Ask 3 people, and tell them that I, Jun Shizhu, have said so. Who dares to say that I'm wrong? Jun Lulu was left speechless. It seems that elder sister is determined to blackmail the Mo clan. This is also a way to vent little Wu's anger. Humph, they cruelly bullied and mistreated my darling little Wu. So, how can they not pay the price? Jun Shizhu changed the topic, and gave an extremely far-fetched reason. However, Mo Ching Wu's eyes lit up. She suddenly felt that Jun Shizhu had become a bit more cordial. Jun Lulu was dumbfounded. Tell me about King of Hell Chu. Little Wu is also very interested in him, Jun Shizhu said with a smile. Mo Ching Wu's eyes lit up. This elder sister looks fierce. But, she's actually a good person. She knows what I want to hear. King of Hell Chu? Jun Lulu stared blankly for a moment. She recalled the street corner with Chu Yang. Then, she sorted out her thoughts, and started to speak. Jun Shizhu listened in silence. Then, she suddenly interrupted and said, so, Chu Yang has 5 sworn brothers. Jiyu Duxing, Luo Kudi, and Jimo Dong Wu Shong, Rui Biu Tong, right? Yes, Jun Lulu thought for a moment, and affirmed. These people are very famous now. They clearly have a bright future ahead of them. But, you haven't noticed that 3 of these brothers of Chu Yang are the second duke of their respective big clans. Yin Biu Tong is the younger brother of Stealing God and Thieving Ghost. He's free to do as he pleases in the 3 heavens. And, Jiyu Duxing was tantamount to a hired thug of the Jiyu clan when he became sworn brothers with Chu Yang. And, Jiyu Duxing became the young clan lord after the 2 dukes of the Jiyu clan died in an accident. Jun Shizhu's eyes flashed with brilliance. They are all such characters. Why? Jun Lulu was startled. She hadn't thought of this. King of Hell Chu, it seems that his ambition isn't small. His ambition is very broad. Jun Shizhu coldly said. However, she had wrongly accused Chu Yang. After all, these people had been roped in by Jiyu Duxing. That's not necessarily the case. After all, King of Hell Chu's strength is still very small. And his brothers are included as well. They are in the limelight now. But they can vanish like smoke overnight if we deliberately deal with them. Jun Lulu thought for a moment, and said with uncertainty, "Not necessarily." Jun Shiju pondered. Jun Lulu remained silent. Mo Qingwu blinked her big eyes. She was still pondering over what Jun Lulu had said. Elder brother Chu Yang, king of Hell Chu, used thunderous methods to subdue Iron Cloud. Wanli broke through the continent alone. He stirred up the world by himself. Elder brother Chu Yang is awesome. Elder brother Chu Yang is the most awesome. Mo Qingwu's eyes flashed with light. Her heart was infinitely satisfied. It seemed that she had also felt the same way about those world-shaking things that Chu Yang had done. She felt extremely glorious, and extremely proud. Jun Shiju snorted, and closed her eyes to rest. However, he was thinking in his heart, there are only 2 people in the lower 3 heavens who can benefit from this if that mysterious expert comes. One is King of Hell Chu, who is about to come up from the lower 3 heavens. As for the other one, as long as I operate well and win over Mo Qingwu, it will undoubtedly be me. But how to deal with Chu Yang? Is he an opponent or an ally? This is a problem. That Chu Yang isn't simple either. Jun Shiju quickly began to calculate. What will the consequences be if I kill Chu Yang? What will the consequences be if I maintain a good relationship with Chu Yang? The aura on her body was somewhat cold and murderous for a while. Then, it was somewhat warm like a spring breeze. Her aura had changed in an instant. However, Mo Qingwu's heart was full of lively thoughts. It seems that there is no danger for the time being. This dark bamboo looks very scary. But she seems to be very kind to me now. Moreover, she seems to be plotting something. I don't know if I should ask her to help elder brother Chu Yang. After all, elder brother Chu Yang is a stranger in the upper 3 heavens. He will be under a lot of pressure if Dark Bamboo is willing to help him. Chapter 436. The wind was whistling outside as the carriage continued to move forward. There were 3 women in the carriage. Some were old, and some were young. All of them were thinking about their own matters. Reporting to Minister Jun, the 3 letters for the Mo clan have already been sent out. A voice came in from outside. Jun Shiju nodded indifferently and replied with a Jun Shiju opened her eyes after a long while. Then, she said, "Ah Lu, send an order to Jukyu. Tell him to adjust the betting odds of Jimo's victory to 1-5. Ah! Jun Lulu was startled. So high? Yes. Jun Shiju gently nodded. Then, she thought for a moment and said, "Find a way to transfer the hidden bid to the open bid after adjusting the odds of the hidden bid. And, Jukyu will give up the banker. He will let Ao Xieyun, Ou Du Xiao, Mo Tianyun, and Xiedan Qiong become the main bankers." She thought for a moment and said, "Let him continue to bet on Jimo's victory after he gives up the banker. In short, the higher the betting odds, the better." Jun Lulu was even more bewildered. Jimo and the others' chances of winning aren't high. And, it'll be even more difficult to deal with them now. Moreover, the banker will make a big profit if they lose. So, why would elder sister give up such a huge profit? Jun Lulu was at a loss. This was a huge bet that had gathered all the aristocratic clans of the 3 heavens. The profit was unimaginable. So, Jun Shiju wanted to give it up. Give up such a huge profit. Jun Shiju snorted and said, "Why would I? Are you so sure that Jimo and the others will lose? Is there any suspense in this?" Jun Lulu's forehead was sweating. Jiao Sheng's side is full of genuine first-rate heirs of great aristocratic clans. And, Jimo's side is basically a group of 2 dukes. Moreover, these people are among the top 10 experts of the younger generation. It's clear at a glance who will win and who will lose. Ha. Jun Shiju faintly smiled and said, "In addition, mobilize another 500 million silver taels. And, bet on Jimo's victory on the last day of the bet." Jun Lulu nearly fell down from her chair. "Elder sister, are you crazy?" Jun Lulu exclaimed. "I know what I'm doing." Jun Shiju faintly smiled and said, "This is a big gift from our dark bamboo to King of Hell Chu's brothers. Let's see if they can take it." Jun Shizhu had already made up her mind at this moment. I will make friends with King of Hell Chu at all cost. However, Jun Shizhu had a precondition for doing so. Jimo and the others must win. If Jimo and the others were still defeated after paying such a huge price, then it would be a complete loss. Not only would they not be good people, but they would also lose money and become enemies. It was a huge gift. Jun Lulu was so shocked that she couldn't speak. Where did her elder sister's confidence come from? Giving up the banker of the gambling house, taking out 500 million taels of silver, and lowering the odds of winning. This was equivalent to throwing out 1.5 billion taels of silver. Although she knew that her elder sister had always been bold, this time, her boldness was really a little too much. Jun Shizhu shook her head when she saw the doubt on her younger sister's face. She then comforted her, "Don't worry. Jimo will win." Jun Lulu was stunned. "This? Elder sister Lu, where are we going?" Mo Ching Wu tilted her head. She had heard the names of Jimo and the others, and had pricked up her ears. "We are going to the place you want to go." Jun Lulu gently smiled. "Your elder brothers are there." Mo Ching Wu's small face lit up with excitement. "Little Wu. But, you have to think clearly. They won't be able to protect you if the Mo clan goes to ask for you if you're with them." Jun Shizhu frowned. "They can't protect me?" Mo Ching Wu had wholeheartedly rushed out. But, she hadn't thought of this point. She couldn't help but feel somewhat perplexed as she heard this. "Yes, they can't protect you." Jun Lulu also sighed. "You are the daughter of the Mo clan after all. The Mo clan has a righteous reason to want you. But, it would be taboo if they don't hand you over. Moreover, those people are second duke. They don't have any real power in their respective clans. So, their clans won't offend a huge force like the Mo clan for them." Mo Ching Wu's complexion suddenly turned pale. These words were absolutely the truth. Mo Ching Wu believed that her brothers would protect her at all costs as long as she went there. But, her brothers wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of her own clan if they were to step in. Moreover, the pressure from the other great clans would also be exerted on them. She would have implicated them if that happened. "Stay here with me," Jun Shizhu insipidly said. "All the big clans will come to me in 3 days to ask for you. And, I'll send them all the same. Get lost." Mo Ching Wu hesitated. Jun Shizhu's words had a certain purpose. But, she wasn't wrong at all. Her elder brothers wouldn't be able to protect her if this news were to leak out. So, the only one who could protect her was, "I hope that you can stay here. First of all, we are both women. I can teach you some things. I can also help you gain experience in Jianghu. I can also shield you from all the storms. And, I can also safely wait for your elder brother Chu Yang," Jun Shizhu insipidly said. She had made up her mind to help Mo Ching Wu since she had heard that her clan had forced her to marry. This had nothing to do with benefits. As for the conjecture that her 3 yin meridians had caused, it was only later. "I have to think about it." Mo Ching Wu frowned. She couldn't make up her mind. Jun Shizhu faintly smiled. She didn't speak anymore. She knew that such a question and a choice in front of such a little girl was indeed somewhat profound. But, Jun Shizhu believed that Mo Ching Wu could understand it. She had her own plans for where to go from here. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for an 11-year-old girl to escape for 4,000 miles by herself. This required not only courage, but also wisdom. This seemingly delicate girl had already been tempered by her own clan, and had become unyielding in her bones. Jun Shizhu was very appreciative of this. She also wanted to see how far this lovely girl could go if Mo Ching Wu accepted her teachings. "Would she be stronger than me?" A strange noise came from the front. It seemed that the procession had slowed down. "Minister Jun, the people of the Huang clan are hurrying ahead. But, they are somewhat slow. Zhuozhi has already sent people to make an exception. He wants them to get out of the way," a respectful voice reported from outside. Kill them all if they don't get out of the way within 3 breaths." Jun Shizhu didn't even lift her eyelids. She insipidly said, "Who would dare to block my way within 3 days? You still want to ask such a thing? Song Zhangwu, have you lost your mind?" Yes. This subordinate will do it right away. The voice outside quickly went away. It fiercely resounded from afar, people of the Huang clan, listen up. Kill them all if they don't get out of the way within 3 breath. 1 tilde tilde 2 tilde tilde then, a panic-stricken and shrill voice resounded. Ah, how can you be so unreasonable? A hideous smile was heard. We are the reason. Motherfucker, you want to reason with the people of our dark bamboo. This is the first time I've encountered such a pervert. 3. Will you get out of the way? Then, a burst of chaotic sound was heard. It seemed that those people had been driven into the ditch. The speed of the dark bamboo's troops increased again. They whistled like a wild dragon. Mo Qingwu couldn't help but lift the curtain of the carriage and look outside. She saw that there were cliffs on both sides of the road. Those people of the Huang clan were standing on the edge of the cliff with anger and humiliation written all over their faces. Their heels had even reached the edge of the cliff. They were standing perfectly straight. The muscles of their entire bodies were stretched tight. They were afraid that they would fall down. The cavalry of the dark bamboo swept past their faces in such an ostentatious manner. Their tongues were raised in the wind, and they were continuously slapping these people's bodies and faces. They were laughing wildly without any fear. Several screams resounded. It seemed that several people had been beaten down, and had fallen down the cliff. However, no one dared to curse or rebel. Mo Qingwu put down the curtain of the carriage, and sighed. Jun Shizhu opened her eyes, and looked at Mo Qingwu. Then, she slowly said, "See? Don't sigh. This is Jianghu. Elder sister's status is the realm that the people of Jianghu strive for all their lives." She rubbed her eyebrows in a somewhat tired manner, and said, "Therefore, everyone wants strength. Everyone wants to become stronger. The strong don't need sympathy in this world. And, the weak don't deserve sympathy." Jun Shizhu slowly said, "Therefore, sympathy is useless in this world. Either you let him bully you even more, or you bully him to make him submit to you and be afraid of you. It's really cruel." Mo Qingwu gently sighed. Her bright and beautiful eyes seemed to be contemplating something. The ancients said that it's difficult to achieve great things if you're soft-hearted. "They're talking about us women," Jun Shizhu coldly said, but Jun Shizhu refused to accept this. Why do women give people such an impression? Soft-hearted. It's ridiculous. Are we women born to be looked down upon? What kind of shameful statement is this? There are so many men in the world who are unnecessarily benevolent. The so-called benevolence and righteousness are made up by men. The so-called etiquette and morality are also made up by men. Why do women have to bear this evil reputation? Jun Shizhu coldly said, "I want the men of the world to see that we women can also make the world tremble. Therefore, I, Jun Shizhu, am a woman. But, I want to intimidate the 3 heavens with an iron fist. I want to suppress the underworld of the 3 heavens with my power. The dark bamboo command will make all heroes bow their heads." A cold light flashed in Jun Shizhu's eyes as she continued, "I want these stinky men to see that we so-called weak women are kneeling in front of them. Women, men." Mo Qingwu suddenly trembled with excitement. It had to be said that Jun Shizhu's words were undoubtedly extremely powerful in inciting women. It was simply overturning rivers and seas, turning heaven and earth upside down. Mo Qingwu's blood was boiling in her heart. She wanted to say, "I also want to do this." However, she suddenly became discouraged after she thought about it. She rolled her eyes for a moment, and suddenly said, "About this. I want to ask my elder brother Chu Yang." Jun Shizhu was dumbfounded. "And, I want to ask elder brother Chu Yang about those things you just said." Mo Qingwu's big eyes flickered as she looked at Jun Shizhu. She then resolutely said. Jun Shizhu choked, and coughed repeatedly. She had almost spurted out a mouthful of blood because of these 2 sentences. She had never expected that this little girl's impassioned expression would change. And, her blood would boil for a long time. Then, she would come out with such a weak and useless sentence. 4th update. It's finally finished. The speed is a bit slow. Please understand. No one can understand my helplessness and powerlessness. I felt when I was overtaken at the last moment after my breakthrough for a month. And I couldn't do anything about it. Such a thing is too cruel for me. I've written this update. And I've revised it twice. I wanted to wait until midnight to post it. So I could conveniently ask for a guaranteed monthly vote. But everyone would have had to wait an hour with me if that had happened. Hee. So I posted it immediately. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brothers and sisters who waited until midnight to cast their monthly votes. But I wish you a good dream. Chapter 437. These words were Jun Shiju's sharpest weapon to subdue all the ordinary female soldiers under her command. Basically, as long as it was a woman, upon hearing these words, they would immediately go wild. She was about to guide Mo Qingwu in this direction. But she hadn't expected that her brilliant plan, which had worked 100 times on all the women, would fail on this little girl. How could she not be depressed? Jun Lulu giggled on one side. Jun Lulu couldn't help but feel angry when she saw that her elder sister's persuasive words had failed in front of a little girl. Ah, it's my fault. Jun Shiju looked disappointed. You're just a little girl. You're not a woman, you don't understand these things. Mo Qingwu innocently and cutely smiled. I'll do whatever Brother Chuyang knows. Jun Shiju heaved a long sigh. She was at her wit's end. She didn't know what to say. So, she closed her eyes tightly. Out of sight, out of mind. I'm depressed. I don't know what great ability your Brother Chuyang has. He has made such a little girl so infatuated with him. The wheels were rolling, and the sound of the horses' hooves was echoing. They were getting closer and closer to Mount Dingjun. Jun Shiju closed her eyes. Her thoughts had already drifted to another direction. Ice and snow wilderness, level spirit beast. Will I advance further if I refine the inner core of a spirit beast? Jun Lulu thought, Brother Yu is at Mount Dingjun right now. He must be having a good time. This guy hasn't written a letter for such a long time. I'll teach him a lesson when I see him. Mo Qingwu thought, Brother Chuyang. Brother Chuyang, come quickly. I miss you, boo-hoo. I don't have my saber. I also left my scabbard at home. Little Wu is so pitiful, boo-hoo. Lower three heavens, Tai Long Cheng and Wu Kuangyun were still fighting in the north and south. Iron Cloud Nation's territory was getting bigger and bigger. Iron Cloud Citadel was also jubilant. The government affairs were also on track. Bu Tian Pavilion had become a unique symbol of Iron Cloud Citadel after its expansion. Inside King of Hell Chu's secret chamber, Wu Qian was wearing a black robe. She had a strict bearing and a golden mask on her face. She was looking at official documents. The secret door in the innermost part of the chamber gently moved. Then, it slowly slid open. A bright yellow figure slowly appeared and walked in. You've come? Wu Qian asked in a soft voice. Yes. Tai Butian's robes were still very loose. She walked over and sat down opposite Wu Qian. She stared at that golden mask in a daze, her eyes overflowing with tenderness. How is it? Do you feel anything? Wu Qian stood up and walked over to Tai Butian in a curious manner. It's only been 2 months. What can I feel? Tai Butian rolled her eyes at her and said, I read in the book that it takes at least 5 months to feel him move. So late? Wu Qian's pretty eyes widened in surprise. However, I can feel that he's growing day by day. Tai Butian smiled, her hand gently stroking her lower abdomen. His face was filled with gentleness. Let me touch. Wu Qian moved closer. She was just about to reach out her hand when she felt that the mask on her face was getting in the way. So, she reached out to take it off. Don't. Tai Butian grabbed her hand and pleaded, Chu, don't take off your mask. If you don't take off your mask, you'll be my Chu. If you take off your mask, I won't even have any fantasies. Looking at Tai Butian's pleading eyes, Wu Qian was suddenly stunned. She was stunned for a long time. Then, her eyes finally came back to life. She reached out and gently stroked Tai Butian's face. She said gently, Love Ghost, it's been hard on you. Her voice had become Chuyang's voice. Tai Butian's body trembled. She closed her eyes and gently grabbed that hand. She pressed it against her face and listened to this familiar voice. It was a voice that had appeared in her dreams so many times. Her face was filled with tranquility and happiness. She said gently, "It's not hard for me to bear children for Chu." Her voice was as affectionate as the sea. It revealed her persistence and no regrets. However, it seemed a little empty, as if she had traveled through time and space to say this to her beloved who had already left. The atmosphere in the secret chamber seemed to have suddenly frozen. After a long time, Wu Qian wiped her eyes and said, "There's something that I'm considering whether to let you know." "What is it?" Tai Butian saw that she had regained her voice and a trace of disappointment flashed across her face. "This piece of information, take a look." Wu Qian took out a thin piece of paper from the file. Tai Butian looked at it and couldn't help but tremble violently. Tears flowed down her cheeks. There were only a few sentences on it. "Minister, outside the Beyond the Heavens sect, a strange thing suddenly happened on the burning stone wall. The entire mountain wall was flattened by someone. 5 words were carved on it, Tian Tian. Little Tian Tian. Other than that, there was no other trace, but Tai Butian was already stunned. Grandson Tian. Little Tian Tian. Tai Butian murmured. Her eyes were in a mess. That day, Chu Yang was standing in front of her, in a daze. That day, Chu Yang let out a long breath. He asked in a hoarse voice, "What is her name?" "Name?" Tai Butian took a long breath. She felt that her eyes were a little moist. She said in a low voice, "I also don't know her surname. I only know that she was called Tian Tian." She said that her father doted on her very much. He always called her Little Tian Tian, Tian Tian. Little Tian's son. Chu Yang's voice was very low. It was hard to tell what kind of emotion was surging in his chest. Hearing Chu Yang call out this familiar name, Tai Butian's heart suddenly ached. She felt that tears were brewing in her eyes. Little Tian Tian. Little Tian Tian. Chu Yang smiled miserably and said, "I didn't expect that I, Chu Yang, would owe such a debt of love. Where is she buried?" Chu Yang took in a deep breath. "I will leave early tomorrow morning. I will go to the Beyond the Heavens sect first to see little Tian Tian who gave up everything for me." Tai Butian's body was on the verge of collapsing. A look of extreme bliss suddenly appeared in her eyes. She felt dizzy and murmured, "I want to go and take a look. I want to go and take a look at those words." She bit her lip happily and raised her face. "That is my man who carved my name. I want to go now." Wu Qian bit her lip and looked at Tai Butian with extreme envy. Her eyes were full of happiness. She only felt endless bitterness in her heart. She has it. She has everything. She has your child, her name is written by you, and the empire you built for her. As for me, I have nothing. I don't even have myself. I have become a substitute, and I have to take care of your woman and your child for you. Can't you give me some memories as well? It has been so long. You haven't even hugged me. I am so envious of you, do you know?" Tai Butian had already stood up. At this moment, she seemed to have regained the majesty of an emperor. She took a few steps out of the door and said indifferently, "Pass down the order. Prepare the carriage and leave the palace." She didn't even have any scruples that she came from the underground. She shouldn't have appeared here at this moment. After Tai Butian walked out, Wu Qian stood there in a daze for a while. The huge secret chamber suddenly felt empty. But it also seemed very crowded. Because it was filled with someone's shadow. It was full. Here, Chu Yang used to lie down and sleep. Here, Chu Yang used to read books. Here, Chu Yang used to frown and pace back and forth. Here, that black robe, Wu Qian's tears couldn't help but fall down. Stroking the black robe on her body, Wu Qian's eyes revealed a faint satisfaction. She softly murmured, "Chu Yang, perhaps you don't know. As long as you wear the black robe for a day, I will always be by your side. Until the upper 3 heavens." Then she stood up and wiped the tears from her eyes. She took a few deep breaths and then slowly walked out. Dressed in a black robe, she looked gloomy and cold. Her eyes were sharp and cold. Her killing intent was overflowing. 10,000 horses galloped at the sound of an emperor's command. A troop was walking on the main road. Their yellow flags were fluttering in the wind. A golden dragon was flying on the flags. In a few days, they had already arrived at the cliff outside beyond the heavens sect. Tai Bu Tian stepped out of the imperial carriage and stood at the bottom of the cliff. She raised her head for a long time and looked at the 5 words carved by Chu Yang's sword on the cliff. For a moment, huge waves were rolling in her heart. Her emotions fluctuated. She wanted to cry out loud but also wanted to smile happily. The bitterness and longing in her heart seemed to be entangled at this moment and brewed into a cup of intoxicating wine. Sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy feelings rushed into her heart at this moment. The first time she saw Chu Yang, he was like an immortal in front of thousands of horses and thousands of soldiers. But their eyes met miraculously. The second time was at Chu Yang's heavenly armament pavilion. She turned into a young girl and went to see his sword. The third time was at the lakeside pavilion outside Bu Tian Pavilion with Chu Yang and poured out her heart. Scenes of the past rushed into her mind like smoke and clouds. Tai Bu Tian stood in disappointment and frustration. That night, Chu Yang was seriously injured, suffering from the aphrodisiac, and was unconscious. Tai Butian didn't hesitate to use her virgin body to help him get rid of the poison. Who would know how shameful that was for a woman? That was, what kind of sacrifice? But I have no regrets. Tai Bu Tian thought silently. She just stood there. Her bright yellow robe fluttered in the wind. She was like a statue, motionless. Chu Yang, do you know that Tian Tian is me? I am Tian Tian. Your little Tian Tian. It turns out that the words Tian Tian written by your hand are so beautiful. Behind her, Wu Qian Qian was wearing a black robe. She looked gloomy and terrifying. Her golden mask looked ferocious and terrifying. She was also looking up at the words on the stone wall. Her eyes were filled with deep envy. The army was quietly stationed in the distance. A gust of wind blew and the sleeves of the 2 people fluttered. In the rolling yellow sand, they looked so lonely. It was as if there were only these 2 people in the world. Everyone who saw this scene felt a kind of heartfelt loneliness. It was as if lightning had struck their hearts in an instant. A kind of desolate feeling arose spontaneously. At this moment, 2 people were watching this scene from the top of the mountain. Both of them were slim and graceful. One of them was wearing a black veil while the other was wearing a white veil. Chapter 438. The white-veiled woman was also happy. She said, "What a coincidence. Then, I will have to trouble you, master." The black-masked woman looked at her with hatred. Then, she sighed, and floated down the mountain. She said while walking, "This junior sister of yours has a better constitution than you. You have the jade bone physique, and she has the exquisite ice heart physique." Exquisite icy heart? The white-veiled woman's delicate body trembled. She said happily, "Congratulations, master." The black-veiled woman snorted and said, "Your icy heart jade bone divine technique had reached a critical point 20 years ago. You would have reached a higher level if you'd taken one more step. But, you were so infatuated with Chu Fei Ling that you lost your virginity. You've destroyed my lifelong dream. I hate you to the core. I'm also extremely heartbroken. I've wanted to kill you several times with my palms. Unfortunately, I couldn't bear to do it because of the deep affection between master and disciple." The white-veiled woman trembled and said, "I failed to live up to master's expectations. I deserve to die. Forget it. Let bygones be bygones. Why are you still talking about it?" The black-veiled woman sighed and said, "I felt as if a knife had been twisted in my heart on the day of your wedding. I only sent someone to deliver a congratulatory gift. But, I didn't congratulate you personally. Instead, I traveled alone. I arrived in the lower 3 heavens that day. It happened to coincide with the birth of the Iron Cloud monarch. The entire nation was celebrating. It was very lively. I was very quiet. So, I went to take a look. But, I accidentally discovered that the monarch in swaddling clothes turned out to be a girl. Moreover, she had the exquisite icy heart physique. I was overjoyed." The black-veiled woman's tone still carried a trace of relief as she said this. "That's because of master's insight. It's also because of little junior sister's good fortune. Moreover, the heaven wants to compensate Master. The white-veiled woman said sincerely, fortunately, Master found little junior sister. Otherwise, this disciple would have inevitably felt guilty for the rest of her life. Humph, you're good with words. You made me happy in those days. But, didn't you run away with him in the end? The black-veiled woman snorted and said, but, the iron-cloud monarch raised this one as a monarch. That's because he gave birth to daughters one after another. When it came to this little girl, she finally felt some despair and began to prepare for a rainy day. At that time, I went to find the king and showed him some of my skills. Then, I took this little girl under my wing. The black-masked woman let out a sigh of relief. The black-masked woman let out a sigh of relief. Master has also put in a lot of effort for junior sister. The white-masked woman couldn't help but feel excited. Once the unfathomable illusory jade was worn, even a supreme martial artist wouldn't be able to see through its depth. It had always been Master's personal treasure. It was hard to find a second one in the entire heavenly layer. Master was actually willing to give such a treasure to junior sister. Moreover, I didn't hesitate to go against my usual style of doing things in order to guard against the unexpected. I secretly destroyed the fertility of the iron-cloud monarch, Tai Shi-cheng. The black-masked woman said in a somewhat guilty manner. Ah! Master! The white-masked woman's delicate body trembled. She looked at her master in disbelief. Tian Tian is the only heir in this way. Moreover, she has the illusory jade. Moreover, she is a member of the imperial family. She lives in the depths of the palace. She can't come in contact with many men. So, I don't have to worry about her having any emotional entanglements. The black-masked woman heaved a deep sigh and said, but, I've let down the iron-cloud monarch in this matter. The white-masked woman remained silent. She thought, how can you say that I'm sorry? You've made him unable to have any descendants. The two of them had already floated down the mountain while they were talking. The black-masked woman exclaimed in surprise and said, it's really that child. But, why is this silly child standing there in a daze? The white-masked woman looked in the direction of the voice. She saw two people standing alone in the middle of the army's protection. They were looking up in a trance. They were quietly motionless. The two of them had a tacit understanding. They flew up at the same time, and landed in that direction. Who are you? The guard shouted, protect the emperor. The magnificent army drew their bows and narked their arrows. Countless experts swiftly leapt out. Two shadows appeared like ghosts. They looked at the two silhouettes. Then, their bodies suddenly shook, and they shouted, don't shoot the arrows. They're on our side. Tai Bu Tian also saw those two silhouettes at the same time. An extremely complicated look suddenly appeared in her eyes. Then, she calmed down. She slowly raised her hand, and shouted, don't shoot the arrows. The three armies immediately stopped moving. The experts who had already leapt up also descended in a grandiose manner. The two women arrived in front of Tai Bu Tian in the blink of an eye. The black-masked woman looked at Tai Bu Tian, and a gratified look appeared in her eyes. She nodded and said, Tian Tian, how are you? Master. Tai Bu Tian was about to step forward to greet her. Go to your camp. There are too many people here. After all, you still have to maintain the emperor's prestige, the black-masked woman said in a very considerate manner. Yes. The four people arrived at the camp, and strictly ordered that no one was allowed to enter. The two shadows stood guard outside with worried looks on their faces. Wu Chen wanted to stay. She knew that Tai Bu Tian was in an extremely dangerous situation. But, she was asked to leave by Tai Bu Tian. Master would be furious if she came to know about this matter. Wu Chen would inevitably be implicated if she stayed here. Master, you haven't come here for a long time. Tai Bu Tian personally went to brew tea, and brought it over. I missed you. So, I came to see you. The black-masked woman smiled and said, besides, your senior sister also needs your help with something. Ah! This is my senior sister. Tai Bu Tian looked at the white-masked woman, and hurriedly bowed. Hello, junior sister. The white-masked woman quickly helped her up, and said in a cordial manner, My name is Yang Ruo Lan. You can call me Sister Lan or Senior Sister. Haha, we don't have so many formalities between us sisters. Yes, thank you, Senior Sister. Why are you thanking me? I want to thank you for inheriting Master's mantle, and fulfilling her wish, Yang Ruo Lan said with a smile. Tai Bu Tian repeatedly promised. But she had a guilty conscience. So, she couldn't help but feel somewhat at a loss. Take off the illusory jade. Let me see how far your cultivation has progressed. The black-masked woman kindly said, You must have reached my requirements by now with your aptitude and hard work. Haha. Tai Bu Tian was startled. She suddenly knelt down after a long while, and said, Master, please forgive me. Little brother. What's the matter? The black-masked woman was startled. Then, she slowly seemed to have realized something. The smile on her face slowly disappeared, and she said in a deep voice, What's the matter? What crime have you committed? Tai Bu Tian steeled her heart, and took off the illusory jade. She then lowered her head, and stood in front of the black-masked woman. Her beautiful hair was like clouds, and her almond-shaped eyes and rosy cheeks were like peach blossoms. She had a graceful bearing, and a peerless talent. She was indeed a stunning beauty. Yang Ruo Lan was about to praise her. But she suddenly seemed to have discovered something. She opened her small mouth, and nearly exclaimed out loud. So, she hastily covered her mouth with her hands. However, the black-masked woman fiercely stood up with a bang sound. Her chair overturned with a bang sound, and fell to the ground. She had overturned the chair with her cultivation. So, it could be seen how shocked her heart was. What's the matter? The black-masked woman asked word by word. The black veil covering her face silently turned into dust. A burst of murderous aura swept across the entire mountain range of the Beyond the Heavens sec. Tens of thousands of soldiers were outside. Everyone was trembling with fear. Their hearts were beating like drums. They felt as if the weather had changed from a hot summer to a cold winter in an instant. Master. Tai Bu Tian knelt on the ground, and said in an aggrieved manner. Don't call me master, the black-masked woman roared. Her voice condensed like a thunderclap. But it didn't sound very loud inside the tent. Then, the sound waves rushed out of the tent, and exploded with a bang. The horses closest to the tent neighed miserably, and fell to the ground. They were bleeding from their 7 orifices. They had died. Hundreds of guards who were guarding the imperial tent spouted blood from their 7 orifices, and fell down softly. Even the bodies of the 2 shadows trembled, and their faces turned pale. Master, calm down. Yang Ruo Lan worriedly looked at Tai Bu Tian. Then, she hastily stepped forward to mediate. The black veil covering the black-masked woman's face had been shattered. And a charming face was exposed. There were wrinkles on her face, but they weren't obvious. This face was usually calm and composed. Moreover, it was very amiable and graceful. But it was covered with frost at this moment. It was filled with an awe-inspiring murderous aura. A kind of irrepressible anger had shrouded her entire body. Your eyebrows are scattered. Your skin is stretched. Your waist and buttocks have changed positions. It's obvious that you're no longer a virgin. The black-masked woman lowered her voice. She gritted her teeth and said, Icy heart jade bone, icy heart jade bone. Where's the icy heart after being tainted? How can it still exist? Tai Bu Tian's entire body trembled. She couldn't speak. Who did this? The black-masked woman shouted in a stern voice. Master. Tai Bu Tian repeatedly kowtowed, Please forgive me, forgive you. The black-masked woman's body flashed, and she suddenly grabbed Tai Bu Tian's wrist. She put 2 fingers on Tai Bu Tian's wrist. Then, she looked up to the sky, and laughed wildly. Her voice was mournful. Good. Good. That's great. That's great. Icy Heart Immortal My Lan My Xian, have received a good disciple. She's practicing the Icy Heart Jade Bone Divine Technique. And, she's even pregnant with a vile spawn. Yang Ruo Lan's delicate body shook fiercely. She looked at Tai Bu Tian in disbelief. She had never dreamed that this little junior sister would be so bold. She was even fiercer than herself back then. Not only did she break the icy heart jade bone divine technique, but she was also pregnant with a child. Whose vile spawn is this? Lan Maixian's graceful face had become distorted. She asked ferociously. Tai Bu Tian shut her mouth. Whose child? Lan Maixian was furious. Who took your virginity? It's. Tai Bu Tian clenched her teeth. She suddenly kowtowed twice. Then, she raised her head, and said with a firm expression, Master, you don't need to ask. This is my man's child. I only ask Master to spare my life for the time being on account of our past relationship. I'm willing to be at Master's disposal when the child is born. You're still refusing to speak. Lan Maixian was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down violently. A violent murderous intention flashed in her eyes. She said in a stern voice, Do you think that I won't dare to kill you? I'll kill you now. She straightened her palm, and a murderous aura surged out. Then, she chopped down towards Tai Bu Tian's head like lightning, a tragic cry for help. The monthly votes were getting closer and closer. Two great gods were pouncing on each other. Their chrysanthemums were in danger. Moreover, one of them was the evil chrysanthemum gate. This is too dangerous. I beg for monthly votes. Defend our purity. Chapter 439. The wind from her palm pierced through the air, and issued a whooshing sound. Then, a faint white smoke spread in the air. Tai Bu Tian closed her eyes. Her hands were tightly clutching her lower abdomen. A trace of reluctance and guilt flashed across her face. 2 lines of tears slowly slid down her face. Chu Yang, I can't protect our child, Master. Yang Ruolan had experienced such a thing once. So, she obviously knew how furious her master was. So, she was prepared. She hurriedly stepped forward, and blocked Lan Maixian's palm with her hands. At the same time, she kicked Tai Bu Tian's body, and her body slid away. Please be merciful. Yang Ruolan had the time to say these words at this time. Lan Maixian raised her leg, and kicked Yang Ruolan away. Then, she said in a stern voice, You don't have the qualifications to persuade me to be merciful. She smiled bitterly and said, I've had 2 younger brothers in my life. The first one lost her virginity before marriage. Her icy heart jade bone divine technique was abandoned halfway. Now, the second one is pregnant before marriage. Moreover, this is the hope of my entire life. Now, it has turned into a bubble. Lan Maixian felt suffocated as she spoke. Then, she spat out a mouthful of blood with a puff sound. She said fiercely, How can I vent the hatred in my heart if I don't kill you? Master, you have to ask about the course of events even if you want to punish me. Perhaps junior sister is also a victim. She was forced. Yang Ruolan didn't have enough time to stop her. She shouted with all her strength. Huh! This sentence cleared Lan Maixian's mind. She stopped her actions, and looked at Tai Bu Tian. What's going on? Master. Tai Bu Tian took a deep breath. Then, she raised her face and said, I did it willingly, fuck. Lan Maixian was furious. What's so good about those stinky men? Why are you all like this, again and again? She was so sad and indignant that she couldn't speak. Even her fingers were trembling. Junior sister, what's going on? Yang Ruolan walked to Tai Bu Tian's side, and asked in a soft voice. Tai Bu Tian lowered her head. She hesitated for a long time. She felt Yang Ruolan's kindness. Then, she said in a low voice, My man, the man whom I deeply loved, he was poisoned by the lust dragon's poison. And at that time, I was the only one by his side. The poison of the lust dragon. Yang Ruolan and Lan Maixian cried out in alarm at the same time. I didn't expect that I would have a child with that one time, but I don't regret it. Instead, I'm very satisfied. Tai Butian lowered his head, but his voice was very resolute. I know that I've let Master down. I feel very guilty for letting Master down, but, she raised her head, looked at Lan Maixian, and said in a soft voice, Master, please forgive this younger brother. I would have still saved him if this matter were to happen again. Moreover, I would have never let another woman be by his side. Tears were dripping down her beautiful face. She blushed as she talked about this matter. However, she didn't hesitate to speak the words from the bottom of her heart. Alas! Lan Maixian let out a long sigh. He closed his eyes, and his entire being seemed to have aged by several decades in an instant. She was born in a big family. Due to her exceptional talent, she was taken in as a younger brother by an extraordinary person. From then on, she spent her entire life cultivating the icy heart jade bone divine technique. However, due to her limited talent, she couldn't break through the last layer no matter how hard she tried. She had reached this bottleneck 40 years ago, but she couldn't break through it. She knew that her life would end here. So, she accepted Yang Ruolan as her successor. But, she hadn't expected that Yang Ruolan would fall deeply in love with Chu Fei Ling when she had grown up and was about to reach a higher level in her cultivation technique. Lan Maixian valued the inheritance, but she also understood her younger brother's difficulties. After all, not every woman could endure being single for a lifetime. So, she let Yang Ruolan return to the clan to get married. She was depressed, and came out to relieve her boredom. But, she met Tai Butian. So, she had the thought of accepting a disciple, but, she hadn't expected that Tai Butian would also be like this, and walk on the same path as her younger brother. She was disheartened. Her disciple's lover was infected with an aphrodisiac. Moreover, it was the most overbearing poison of the lust dragon. How could her disciple look on helplessly as her lover died? Lan Maixian knew that she couldn't do such a thing. Since that was the case, what else was there to say? After a long time, she said sadly, "Get up. I'm unlucky and unlucky. I can't accept two rich disciples like you." When she said this, she had also thought it through. Since things had come to this, what else could she say? What was the use of saying anything? So what if she killed Tai Butian? Moreover, one corpse had two lives. "Thank you, master. I'm sorry. Tai Butian kowtowed twice in gratitude. She couldn't help but feel even more guilty when she thought of how her master's lifelong dream had been destroyed by her own hands, and how she had forgiven her just like that. Seeing her master's miserable look, she felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. This was the first time Yang Ruolan had seen Tai Butian. But, after putting herself in her master's shoes, she knew that if Tai Butian was killed by her master's palm in a fit of rage, her master would probably be depressed for the rest of her life and be plagued by inner demons. After all, the fetus was innocent. Yang Ruolan had lost her child before, and she was still brooding about it. How could she not understand the feelings a mother had for her child? That was something that no treasure in the world could replace. "Sigh, it's just that you're in a difficult situation now." Lan Maixian sighed. She suppressed the disappointment in her heart and said, "You're the emperor now, and that man can only be in the dark. But, you're pregnant." This, she thought over and over again, and felt that her disciple was in a difficult situation. "Where's that man?" The wrinkles on Lan Maixian's face seemed to pile up at this moment. She waved her hand weakly and said, "Call him here. I'll teach him a good lesson. You've done so much for him. I can't let you down no matter what. Otherwise, I swear that I'll kill him even if the heavens protect him, that man." Tai Butian looked at her master blankly. She felt sad, guilty, and terrified in her heart. She stammered, What's wrong with him?" Lan Maixian snorted, "Don't worry. How can I be interested in attacking him since I've already forgiven you?" "He's not here," Tai Butian said with great effort. "Huh?" Lan Maixian wrinkled her brows and snorted in displeasure. "He's really not here." He's already left," Tai Butian said. "Left? Where did he go?" Lan Maixian was displeased. She said, "Doesn't he know that his woman is here? And, his woman is going to give birth to his child. How can he leave at this time?" Yang Ruolan was also somewhat dissatisfied in her heart. How can there be such an irresponsible man? Such a man is simply a bastard. Tai Butian stammered. She didn't know what to say. She finally squeezed out a sentence, "Master, please don't ask. I did everything willingly, don't ask." Lan Maixian snorted. A cold light flashed in her eyes. She then raised her voice and said, "Shadows, you two come in." Tai Butian's complexion turned deathly pale. Shadows, can't hide anything from master. The two shadows heard the sound and walked in. They heaved a long sigh of relief when they saw that Tai Butian was safe and sound. Do you know about this matter? Lan Maixian pointed her chin at Tai Butian and said in a dense voice, Don't tell me that you don't know what I'm talking about. The two shadows were left at a loss for words. They hadn't expected that she would ask them about such a troublesome matter. The two of them owed Chu Yang a big favor. How could they betray him? Huh! Lan Maixian snorted dangerously. She was about to raise her head in anger again. Today is very strange. My disciple has disobeyed my order. There's a reason for it. It's pardonable. But I didn't expect that these two guys would also want to disobey my order. This shadow broke out in cold sweat and said, Ancestor, we don't know much about this matter. Speak. Lan Maixian was burning with anger. She slammed the table, and the entire tent jumped along with her. Master, let me speak. Tai Butian knew that this matter couldn't be concealed. She saw that Shadow was in a difficult position. So, she stood up and said calmly. Everyone's gaze turned towards her. His surname is Chu. His name is Chu Yang, Tai Butian said in a soft voice. Yang Ruolan's expression shook. His surname is Chu. Tai Butian cleared her thoughts. Then, she spoke from the beginning of Chu Yang's entry into Iron Cloud Citadel. She spoke all the way until Chu Yang defeated the Golden Horse Riders department. Then, she floated away after that. So, he still doesn't know? Lan Maixian was really shocked this time. Her disciple had sacrificed everything. Moreover, she was waiting to give birth to his child without any complaints or regrets. But, the instigator of all this had left without knowing anything. I'm really. Lan Maixian looked at Tai Butian with resentment. I have lived for 358 years, but this is the first time I have seen such a silly girl like you. You're stupid to the extreme. Master. I also want to be with him. But, I'm the Iron Cloud Monarch. We're not destined to be together. And, he has another love in his heart. Brother. Tai Butian lowered her head and didn't speak when she saw Lan Maixian's ice-cold gaze. Humph. Another love. Lan Maixian snorted and said, King of Hell Chu. King of Hell Chu. Humph. What a good King of Hell Chu. He didn't abandon me. Tai Butian weakly tried to defend herself. You're still stupid. How stupid can you be before you give up? Lan Maixian was extremely angry. Suddenly, there was a burst of dense mist in the air. A cloud of faint mist slowly condensed in front of Yang Ruolan, and turned into a few words. Lan Maixian snorted. She was so angry that she felt dizzy. Yang Ruolan, you're good. The icy heart jade bone was crippled. But, you turned the crippled icy heart jade bone into the heaven and earth two minds connection. You've thoroughly eliminated the power of the icy heart jade bone. You're good. You're very good. You're worthy of being called my good disciple. Yang Ruolan's complexion suddenly became awkward. Chapter 440. Found it. So fast. Lan Maixian frowned. There were only 2 lines of words. The mysterious Yang Jade core has been found. Come back quickly. Great. I found it. Father-in-law is safe now. Yang Ruolan clapped her hands happily. But, she immediately frowned. But, why did you ask me to go back in such a hurry? However, no one else was infected by her joyful mood. The tent was filled with a depressing atmosphere. Lan Maixian felt as if her heart had died. Such a blow was simply too cruel to her. Forget it, do as you wish. Lan Maixian listlessly said, I was wrong. Well, it seems that this icy heart jade bone divine technique will end here. I don't want to suffer a third blow. Forget it. Everything is over. Tai Butian and Yang Ruolan felt extremely guilty. This phantom jade, please take it back, master. Tai Butian bowed. She respectfully held the phantom jade in her palm, and handed it over to Lan Maixian. Lan Maixian looked at Feng Butian with a complicated expression in her eyes. She finally heaved a long sigh. She had taken this younger brother as her disciple when she was still an infant. She had stayed for 3 years to build her foundation and unblock her meridians. Afterwards, she had come down every year to take a look. And she had stayed for a period of time every time. She had only come down a few times recently when she needed to break through the bottleneck on her own. It could be said that she had left her own footprints in every period of her younger brother's growth. She had been babbling since she was young. So, how could she just be a mere disciple in her heart? She had practiced the icy heart jade bone divine technique. She had never had any children in her life. But she had still taught Tai Bu Tian as if she were her own daughter. She had spent a lot of effort on this. She sat still and thought about her worries in a daze for a long time. Then, she slowly stood up, walked to Tai Bu Tian, and said in a gentle voice, "Forget it. You're still the ruler of a nation. So, I'll give this to you if you need it. I don't have much use for it if I keep it." She took it and hung it around Tai Bu Tian's neck. Tears streamed down Tai Bu Tian's face. She was sobbing so hard that she couldn't make a sound. She whimpered, "Teacher." Then, she threw herself into her teacher's arms and hugged her tightly. Lan Maixian tidied up the jade tablet for her. Her eyes were brimming with tears as she said with a smile, "Silly child. Silly girl. I really don't know how you're going to live your life." Sigh. Suddenly, he was startled and asked, "What is this?" However, Lan Maixian suddenly smelled a very subtle but extremely pure medicinal fragrance at this moment. And her heart suddenly turned pale with fright. Suddenly, with a flick of his finger, a 500 kilograms purple crystal jade bottle jumped out from Tai Bu Tian's bosom. Lan Maixian's complexion changed as she looked at the tightly sealed purple crystal bottle. But it was still able to emit such a subtle medicinal fragrance. She waved her hand and said, "You guys go out first." 2 figures came out at the sound. Lan Maixian's expression was solemn. She slowly unscrewed the lid of the bottle. She had unscrewed it halfway when the medicinal efficacies gushed out. She sniffed it and immediately took 2 steps back. She looked at the purple crystal bottle in her hand in disbelief. Then, she closed the lid of the bottle at lightning speed and held it tightly in her hand. Her entire body trembled as she pleaded, "Who gave this to you?" Her eyes were so sharp and bright that it was almost frightening when she said this. It's a strange person. Because I helped him once, saved his life." Tai Butian saw her master's frightening eyes. So, she subconsciously hid Chu Yang's identity. "Strange person, what kind of strange person?" Lan Maixian pressed on. "His ever-changing. I don't know his real appearance." Tai Butian was even more apprehensive. "You should thank him properly." Lan Maixian stared at her for a while. Then, she heaved a long sigh. Then, she smiled. It was obvious that Tai Butian didn't want to talk about it. But Lan Maixian easily let go of this topic. Instead, she smiled meaningfully. She returned the purple crystal bottle to Tai Butian. Then, she chuckled. The more she laughed, the happier she became. "Master, what's wrong with you?" Yong Ruolan and Tai Butian asked in fear. Could it be that their master couldn't bear such a blow? So, she lost her mind. "I'm laughing. I'm laughing because you've profited from a disaster." Lan Maixian laughed happily. She was beaming with joy. She was in high spirits. Yong Ruolan and Tai Butian were flabbergasted. They couldn't understand why their master had suddenly become so happy when she had been disheartened a moment ago. What's the reason behind this? Then, Lan Maixian smiled happily and said, "Tian Tian, you're going to give birth in 8 months, right?" "Yes." Tai Butian lowered her head with a red face. "Ha ha ha, good." Lan Maixian laughed heartily and said, "Your senior sister and I will come to congratulate you when the time comes. We also have an important matter to attend to at the same time." She solemnly looked at Tai Butian. "You must remember this. Your icy heart jade bone divine technique is crippled. But you mustn't disperse the power of the icy heart. This matter concerns your entire life. So, you must remember these words of mine." She had spoken these words one by one. In fact, she had become extremely solemn. Tai Butian was puzzled. But she still obediently agreed and said, "Yes. I will be waiting for Master and Senior Sister when the time comes." It's inappropriate, it's inappropriate. Lan Maixian paced a few steps and said, "This matter is of great importance. So, it's difficult to guarantee that a silly girl like you will do something stupid if I go back. Then, everything will come to an end. So, I won't go back. I'll stay behind to look after you." Tai Butian and young Ruolan looked at each other in dismay. They were dumbfounded. "Ruolan, I won't go back with you this time. You must be careful on the way back." Lan Maixian made up her mind and said to young Ruolan, "Yes. In addition, Chang Teng of the upper three heavens, let's put aside this matter for the time being. First," Lan Maixian humphed. "The ominous Saberheart has suffered some losses." "It doesn't matter." Young Ruolan felt her heart beating wildly. "Some losses? Master has spread out 10,000 purple crystals over there. Moreover, it's already at the final juncture. 10,000 purple crystals will be gone if the husband dies. This is almost equivalent to the sum of all the treasures of a small clan in the upper three heavens. Master said that she doesn't want them." "So, she doesn't want them?" It must be known that there are still 8 months between Tai Butian's pregnancy and delivery. Lan Maixian can go back and forth more than 10 times during this period of time. So, she won't delay anything. But, she wants to give up waiting for Tai Butian to deliver. It's too strange. Young Ruolan was about to ask when she heard a voice as soft as a mosquito's. Condensing sound into a line. "Ruolan, pass by the upper three heavens on your way back. Teach that king of hell Chu a lesson while you're at it. It's okay to cripple him as long as you don't kill him." It was Lan Maixian's voice. "He dared to abandon my disciple. I won't let him off easily." Young Ruolan's lips moved. She didn't have the ability to condense sound into a line like her master. She looked sideways at Tai Butian's lower abdomen. "Don't tell him. Wait for me to settle this account with him personally." Lan Maixian snorted coldly. "Keep that bastard alive. Don't let him disturb your junior sister's state of mind for the time being." She paused for a moment and then said, "Don't let your junior sister know about this." Young Ruolan nodded. She was also ruthless in her heart. That bastard left so irresponsibly. His crime is unforgivable. I'll teach him a lesson even if Master doesn't tell me. This storm has disappeared. Lan Maixian followed Tai Butian back to the palace. It seemed that she had made up her mind to stay by Tai Butian's side. It was as if in her heart, nothing was more important than her little disciple, whose cultivation had been crippled. Even Tai Butian was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. Chuyang was approaching Mount Dingjun now. Mount Dingjun looked like a huge stone bench from afar. It was a towering mountain peak. But, it seemed as if it had been cut in half by someone's saber. There was a huge platform thousands of feet above such a huge mountain. The upper half of the mountain had disappeared without a trace. Legend has it that Supreme Martial Artist Chen Feng and Supreme Martial Artist Liu Yun had fought on this Mount Dingjun a long time ago. Supreme Martial Artist Chen Feng got excited during the fight. He used all of his strength to form a saber and chopped it down. Supreme Martial Artist Liu Yun rushed to the sky to dodge. The saber energy spread everywhere, and destroyed the upper half of Mount Dingjun. The lower half of the mountain is now the rocky plain at the foot of Mount Dingjun. Jimo stood at the foot of the mountain. He looked at Mount Dingjun, and said with infinite reverence, "Mount Dingjun has also become like this. The top of the mountain is as smooth as a mirror. The people of the later generations tidied it up a little. Then, it became a natural arena for duels on all sides." Chu Yang looked at Mount Dingjun, and thought of the battle back then. He thought of the earth-shattering battle between the two supreme martial artists. They had destroyed a huge mountain with a single saber strike. Such a powerful force had fascinated him. Of course, this is only a legend. Jimo smiled. No one knows whether it's true or not. This isn't a legend. Sword Spirit suddenly spoke in Chu Yang's mind. He said to Chu Yang in a deep voice, "Chen Feng and Liu Yun were real people. This battle did happen." Chu Yang nodded. Jimo wanted to say something more. But Jiju had already walked over listlessly while yawning and rubbing his eyes. He then lazily and slowly said, "Why are you so slow? Why aren't you going up? What are you waiting for?" Even Chu Yang wanted to beat him up when he heard these words. "Motherfucker, no one in the world can be as slow as you, Jiju. You still have the face to say this." Jimo rolled his eyes. He didn't turn his head back. He pulled Chu Yang and walked away. Neither of them turned their heads. They both had the same thought in their minds: "I'm afraid that I'll see this bastard Jiju scratching his feet if I turn my head. Then, the meal that I had eaten with great difficulty would have been wasted." They walked forward for a while. They were about to turn around the foot of the mountain and enter the path leading up the mountain. Suddenly, they heard a loud shout in front of them. And it shook the entire mountain. A majestic voice loudly shouted, "Meng Luo, I'm only asking you this. Will you hand it over or not?" Chu Yang and Ji Mo looked at each other and saw the same expression in each other's eyes. This is Dong Wu Shong's voice. I don't know why he's fighting with Meng Luo, one of the 8 great dukes. Both of them were about to quicken their pace when a strange wolf-like howling sound was heard. "Awu, you motherfucker Meng Luo. Awu, you motherfucker, won't you hand it over? Awu, do you believe that I won't blow up your sister with my fart? Awu." Chu Yang almost spat out his rice. There's no need to guess the owner of this voice. There's no second person apart from Luo Ku Di and second young master Luo. Chapter 441. Ji Yu, Ji Mo, and Chu Yang quickened their pace to catch up with them. Ji Zhu sighed as he led the 10 experts of the Ji clan to follow them. They turned a corner and saw 2 groups of people confronting each other. Dong Wu Shong's face was like black ice. He was clad in a black robe, and only the hilt and a small part of the blade of the black saber were exposed on his back. He was looking down with a fierce look in his eyes. Dong Wu Lei and the 10 experts of the Dong clan were behind him. Luo Ku Di was beside him. He was clad in a snow-white robe, and had a golden crown on his head. His face was like jade, and he had an elegant demeanor. He was holding a gold-painted folding fan in his hand. He had the appearance of an elegant gentleman. However, Luo Ku Di's expression was lustful, and his movements were arrogant and wretched. Anyone who saw him would know that he wasn't an elegant gentleman. Instead, he was a hedonistic young master who wouldn't shrink from any crime. Especially, this guy's shoulders were shaking at the moment. His entire body was convulsing, and was slightly trembling in excitement. This made people want to slap him even more. Slap him flat. They were facing a man in a brocade robe. His face was like jade, and his eyes were like bright stars. He had delicate features, and an elegant demeanor. He was a typical gentleman with a graceful bearing. He was Meng Luo, the Grand Duke of the Meng clan, and the 10 king-level experts of his clan. However, Meng Luo's expression was very angry at the moment. He was looking at Dong Wu Shong with his fiery eyes. It seemed as if he wanted to bite him to death. Several people were standing around. They were clearly here to watch the fun. These 3 clans were confronting each other. And there was a feeling of mutual hostility. The matter was like this. Second young master Luo had nothing better to do. He had come out for a stroll, and had happened to see the people of the Meng clan arrive at Mount Dingjun. However, second young master Luo had sharp eyes. He had seen Meng Luo holding a leopard cub in his hand. It seemed that the cub hadn't been tamed yet. Meng Luo was slowly rushing over. He was carefully training it. He would occasionally let it go out to hunt for food. Second young master Luo's eyes turned red. Fuck. The cub of a 7th grade spirit beast, storm leopard. This is a good thing. Ordinary spirit beasts were rarely captured by humans. Adult spirit beasts were simply impossible to tame. Moreover, when they were at the end of their rope, they would bite their own cubs to death rather than let them fall into the hands of humans and be enslaved. Even though the entire 3 heavens had the Kanglan battlefront, which was a place with countless spirit beasts, the most one could do was to kill them and obtain their cores and fur. Not many people had a decent spirit beast. As for those below level 3, even if they caught a cub, It would only be a plaything. Second young Master Luo hadn't expected that this Meng Luo would possess the cub of a 7th grade spirit beast, the storm leopard. This was a treasure that could not be encountered nor sought after. Second young Master Luo's eyes turned red in an instant. However, Luo Kudii was also filled with hatred. I sneaked out to play by myself. I didn't have any helpers by my side. Meng Luo's strength isn't inferior to mine. Moreover, he has a large number of king-level experts with him. It could not be outsmarted, nor could it be outsmarted. What should he do? Second young Master Luo was extremely anxious. Dong Wu Shong majestically led the Dong clan's people from the other side at this moment. Second young Master Luo suddenly found his savior. So, he jumped and took a detour. Meng Luo immediately received the storm leopard's cub when he saw that there were outsiders. He didn't want others to know that he had such a treasure. Meng Luo and Dong Wu Shong walked to the opposite side. So, they had no choice but to greet each other. Then, they stopped and exchanged a few pleasantries. They were about to separate when Luo Kudii ran over with a sullen face. He then grabbed Dong Wu Shong, "Fourth brother, you must uphold justice for me." This sentence caused everyone to be dumbfounded. Meng Luo was also somewhat flabbergasted. He thought, what's wrong with king-level expert wolf sword? Dong Wu Shong flew into a rage and asked, who bullied you? My brother is being bullied. Who has the guts of a leopard? Meng Luo was also somewhat curious. He was also taking pleasure in other people's misfortune. So, he didn't hurry to leave. Instead, he pricked up his ears to listen. He hadn't expected that Luo Kudii would burst into tears. Then, he turned to Meng Luo and said, "Fourth brother, it's this Meng Luo." Dong Wu Shong and Meng Luo were startled. They were extremely surprised. Meng Luo felt wronged. When did I bully you? You aren't joking, right? What's wrong? 4. I went through untold hardships, and finally killed 2 storm leopards. But, I was pleasantly surprised when I found a storm leopard cub. But, Meng Luo killed it and snatched it away. Luo Kudii said in a tearful voice. Dong Wu Shong looked at Luo Kudii from the corner of his eyes. He knew that this guy was using him to snatch Meng Luo's good stuff. This bastard's white robe is spotless, and his hair is meticulous. But, he still has the face to say that he went through untold hardships to kill 2 storm leopards. Motherfucker, those are 7th grade spirit beasts. You can't fight one on your own. But, you still dare to brag like this. But, this is my brother. Moreover, how can a treasure like a storm leopard fall into the hands of this scum? Even if you don't give it to Luo Kudii, it should at least belong to me, Dong Wu Shong. Therefore, Dong Wu Shong flew into a rage, and ferociously looked at Meng Luo. He then roared, Meng Luo, hand over my brother's spirit beast. Meng Luo was so angry that his mouth became crooked and his eyes slanted. What the fuck is going on here? How did it suddenly develop to this point? Isn't the plot changing too fast? More than a dozen king-level experts of the clan had joined hands to kill that storm leopard. Moreover, they had coincidentally obtained its cub. Meng Luo had always treasured it as if it were his life. So, how did it become Luo Kudii's? This is too shameless, isn't it? However, it was clear that Luo Kudii must have accidentally seen him teasing the storm leopard. So, he must have become envious of it. And, that's why he wanted it. But, when did Luo Kudii and Dong Wu Shong become brothers? Brother Dong, you've wrongly accused me. Meng Luo's anger surged like a mountain. He then said in an aggrieved manner, am I that kind of person? Aren't you? Dong Wu Shong snorted. He remained unmoved, and rudely said, I don't care if you're that kind of person or not. I only want the storm leopard. Take it out and give it back to my brother. That storm leopard is mine. Meng Luo was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Luo Kudii, don't you have any shame? Is it yours? Do you have the ability to kill the storm leopard? Luo Kudii shrugged his shoulders. Humph, it's mine. You snatched it from me. Meng Luo was so angry that his vision turned black. Dong Wu Shong shouted, Meng Luo, I'm only asking you this. Are you going to hand it over or not? Dong Wushong had deliberately released his oppressive power with these words. His majestic imposing aura accompanied his deep and imposing voice, and pressed down on Meng Luo. This sentence was clearly heard by Chu Yang and Ji Mo. Ha. Meng Luo sneered. He wasn't a good person. He usually had a high position and power. He was also a character who wouldn't shrink from any crime. So, he had always been arrogant. So, how could he be intimidated by Dong Wushong? He imposingly said, Dong Wushong, do you want to stand up for Luo Kudi? Stand up for him? Dong Wushong's eyes narrowed dangerously. That storm leopard cub is mine. You don't need to hide this. You and I both know in our hearts whether Luo Kudi is telling the truth or not. Meng Luo gloomily said, Dong Wushong, do you want to rob someone today? So what if I rob someone? So what if I rob you? A mischievous laughter was heard as a voice arrogantly replied. Dong Wushong, Luo Kudi, and Meng Luo turned their heads to look at the same time. They saw a few people walking side by side on the other side of the mountain road. Jimo, the protagonist of the Mount Dingjun incident, had arrived. Luo Kudi and Dong Wushong's eyes fell on the person beside Jimo at the same time. They couldn't restrain the excitement on their faces. That person's black robe was fluttering in the wind. He had a tall stature. He was walking on the mountain road. Each of his steps seemed as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard. However, it seemed as if the King of Hell had suddenly appeared in the human world. And he had brought the entire world with him. Every step he took made people feel as if he was treading on the thick dark clouds of the underworld. He was looking at Dong Wushong and Luo Kudi at this moment. There was a faint smile on his face. But it was like a wisp of spring breeze. And it made the hearts of these two people warm up. The two of them took a step forward, and were about to greet him. But they saw Chu Yang slightly shake his head. The two of them had no choice but to swallow their bellyful of words. However, they were indescribably excited in their hearts. It wasn't that Chu Yang didn't want to acknowledge them. But he didn't want to acknowledge them in front of other people. He didn't care about himself. But it would be tantamount to an alliance between the Ji clan, Luo clan, Dong clan, Jiyu clan, Stealing God, and Thieving Ghost if they were to publicly announce their brotherly relationship. This matter was enough to cause a huge uproar for 3 days. Chu Yang didn't know what the consequences of this would be. But he was sure that the other clans would feel insecure. And this could lead to a disaster if someone deliberately incited it. Therefore, Chu Yang wanted to wait and see. It was true that he wasn't afraid of anything. But he had to consider his brothers. Jimo raised his head and walked out in large strides. He was walking like a dragon or tiger. He then pointed his finger. Meng Luo, dog aunt, quickly hand over the storm leopard. We brothers are going to rob you today. Luo Kudi howled loudly, and jumped out. Wa ha ha ha, awu. Meng Luo, hand over the storm leopard. Meng Luo clenched his teeth. Then, he suddenly looked up and laughed. Do you think you can rob me because you have more people? Ha ha ha. Dong Wushong, Luo Kudi, Jimo. The three of you, come at me together. It's not difficult to get the storm leopard. Defeat me, and the storm leopard will be yours. Suddenly, he shook his arms, and the embroidered robe on his body split open from the front lapel with a crashing sound. Then, he floated backwards like a white cloud. He stretched out his right hand, and a small leopard with 5 colors squatted on his palm. It was squeaking in confusion. Meng Luo shook his hand, and the small leopard flew out of his hand. It fell into the bosom of an old man behind him. Then, he took 3 steps forward in large strides, and stood upright. He clapped his palms, and a whooshing sound of metal resounded. He raised his eyes, and looked at the 3 people. They were brimming with fighting spirit. Chu Yang's black robe fluttered, and he took a step forward. He stepped on the big rock that Dong Wushong was standing on. Old man, you're a king-level expert? Dong Wushong was startled. He lowered his voice, and asked. I'm merely a second-grade sword king. Chu Yang touched his nose and replied modestly. Dong Wushong almost fainted. Big Brother was dozens of levels lower than us when we first met in the lower 3 heavens. But, we've met today, and we're at the same level. This is simply not letting us live. Chapter 442. It's him. Dong Wushang snorted and said, the Grand Duke of the Meng clan, Meng Luo, is good at eating, drinking, whoring, and gambling. He's a typical dandy. His voice clearly didn't care about Meng Luo. Moreover, he despised Meng Luo's character. Chu Yang wrinkled his brows. It's okay to despise his character. But, I shouldn't underestimate his strength. Dong Wushang would suffer a big loss if he were to face Meng Luo alone if he were to maintain this mentality. Don't underestimate him, Chu Yang reminded. His current strength may not be below yours. Him? Dong Wushang sneered. His strength had improved tremendously now. Carrying the dark saber was equivalent to cultivating all the time. He was practically advancing at a tremendous pace. Moreover, the black saber's heaviness made him even more invincible. Among the younger generation, only Jiyu Duxing could make him somewhat apprehensive. But now, he didn't even take Ao Xieyun seriously. So, why would they look at an insignificant Meng Luo? Chu Yang cautiously looked at Meng Luo. He then said in a low voice, what you see is just an illusion. This Meng Luo, he cultivates the technique of harvesting yin to replenish yang. Ah! Dong Wushang's jaw dropped. Evil technique. Moreover, Meng Luo has a special physique. He practices the vivid spring dream divine technique, which has been handed down from the ancestors of the Meng clan. But, no one has ever succeeded in practicing it. So, you must be extremely careful even if you and Du Xing are to face each other, Chu Yang said in a low voice. Yes, but Little Wolf wants his storm leopard. Since we've decided to rob him, then we must get it. Dong Wushang narrowed his eyes and said, I'll go and meet him. Meng Luo was issuing a challenge. He had arrogantly declared that he would fight 1 against 3. However, he clearly understood that these 3 people wouldn't join hands to deal with him in front of everyone's eyes. But if it was a one-on-one fight, he wasn't afraid of anyone. Even if Dong Wushang came out, he was confident that he could make Dong Wushang suffer a great loss by relying on the vivid spring dream divine technique that had never appeared before anyone. Meng Luo was absolutely certain of this. Therefore, he had nothing to fear. Chu Yang narrowed his eyes, and looked at Meng Luo. He then insipidly said, you haven't dealt with the vivid spring dream divine technique. So, I'll go. You? Dong Wushang was somewhat bewildered. I haven't dealt with it before, but you have? But when he saw Chu Yang's confident eyes, he knew that Big Brother always planned before taking action. So, he couldn't help but nod. He was only so obedient in front of Chu Yang. If it were anyone else, even if it was Jiyu Duxing, he wouldn't be able to make him behave like this. Because Chu Yang had created a miracle that he would never be able to achieve. Moreover, it was a martial arts miracle. Moreover, these brothers had achieved what they couldn't do in the past with Chu Yang's help. Chu Yang insipidly said, you must clearly see how I force him to use his vivid spring dream divine technique. Tell the other brothers to be mentally prepared. But, Meng Luo would run away once chaos appeared. So, it would be inevitable that someone would suffer a loss if he were to encounter his brothers in the future. Moreover, Jimo's marriage-snatching battle was about to take place. So, Meng Luo would certainly make an appearance. At that time, the one who would deal with him would definitely not be him. Therefore, it was most advantageous to force Meng Luo to reveal his trump card at this moment. Dong Wushang nodded and said, don't worry. I'll break it the next time I meet him as long as he dares to use it. Jimo cursed loudly on the other side. Luo Kudi was eager to give it a try. But then, a cold voice resounded at this moment, snatching your storm leopard is giving you face. Meng Luo, you should feel honored. Meng Luo flew into a rage. Luo Kudi, Jimo, and Dong Wushang were of similar status with him. So, he had endured it since they had spoken a few words to each other. But, who was this person who had spoken? He raised his eyes, and saw the black-robed youth beside Dong Wushang with his hands behind his back. He had floated down from the big rock, and was looking at him coldly. Meng Luo was about to curse when he saw the black-robed youth stretch out his right hand from his black robe. His empty palm issued a clang sound. A mass of dense light and shadow dispersed from his body. And a glorious crown suddenly appeared in the sky above his head. But it was different from other people's crowns. The shadow of a long sword was soaring straight to the sky above this crown. Sword King! Meng Luo cried out in alarm. He looked at Chu Yang with a different expression in his eyes. This youth is clearly several years younger than me. But he has become the Sword King at such a young age. This achievement had made Meng Luo afraid in his heart. Whose clan is this? How come he hasn't appeared? However, Meng Luo felt somewhat relieved when he saw that Dong Wushong hadn't come out. Who are you? Meng Luo asked. Your Excellency, why did you bother to get involved in this muddy water? My surname is Chu. Chu Yang faintly smiled and said, this is my brother. My brother wants the storm leopard. Meng Luo, you're a smart person. So, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Surname Chu. Meng Luo repeated this name in his mouth. But he didn't have any impression of it. Suddenly, he laughed nastily and said, do you want to fight with me? I don't want to fight with you, Chu Yang corrected him. I want to receive that storm leopard. Ha ha ha. Meng Luo laughed heartily. But he immediately stopped. Then, he sinisterly said, I have the storm leopard as my stake. So, what will you lose if you lose? I won't fight a battle without any benefits. I will give this to you if I lose. Chu Yang flipped his hand, and a sword appeared with a shua sound. It reflected the blazing sun in the sky, and suddenly emitted thousands of cold light. Meng Luo, who was 30 feet away from Chu Yang, also felt a burst of ice-cold wind blow against his face the moment this sword appeared. I want to remind you that this sword can cut iron like mud. It can cut gold and cut jade. It can destroy any obstacle. Chu Yang casually tossed the sword. It somersaulted, and flew out of his hand. Then, it gently fell horizontally in the air. Chu Yang tossed it again, and a piece of black steel appeared in the place where the sword's blade had fallen. The sword's edge collided with the black steel with a clang sound. And it cut into the black steel as if it was cutting tofu. Meng Luo's eyes suddenly opened wide. A greedy light shone in his eyes. Chu Yang lifted his foot, and kicked that piece of black steel which was still attached to the sword away. The sword's blade vibrated, and issued a buzzing sound. The black steel fell at Meng Luo's feet. Chu Yang's move was extremely beautiful. It was natural and unrestrained. It was straightforward and upright. It was much more natural and unrestrained than Meng Luo's. Luo Ku Di asked Ji Mo in a low voice, Big brother, aren't you afraid that Meng Luo will take the sword and run away? Ji Mo became angry and said, Meng Luo would have taken it and run away if he were as brainless as you. The problem is that he isn't. Luo Ku Di twice. He was embarrassed, and didn't speak anymore. Meng Luo wasn't stupid. He was greedy at the moment. But he would have suffered the joint attack of the Luo clan, Jiyu clan, and Ji clan if he had taken the sword and run away. And there would have been no need to talk about rules with him at that time. Perhaps all the people who had come with him would have died here if that had happened. How could he do such a stupid thing? Chu Yang secretly laughed in his heart. Who can take my sword and run away? The power of the sword spirit has already been attached to it. So, the sword will break into two pieces as long as the sword spirit wills it. Meng Luo was dumbstruck at this moment. He held the sword, and casually cut the black steel. And a piece of iron fell down. Then, he changed the sword of his follower. He didn't use any strength, and the follower's sword broke into two pieces with a crack sound. It seemed as if he had cut a piece of wood. However, Chu Yang's sword wasn't damaged in the slightest. Meng Luo's hands were somewhat trembling. His lips were also trembling. He was reluctant to part with the sword. He looked at Chu Yang, and asked somewhat anxiously, Do you really want to gamble with this sword with me? What? You don't want to? Forget it if you don't want to. Chu Yang spread out his hands. I want to. Why don't I want to? I'll gamble. Meng Luo's eyes lit up. Storm leopard is good. But it's still a cub. It will take decades for it to grow to adulthood. But this sword is a rarely seen sharp weapon in the world. It's more valuable than an adult storm leopard. This guy wants to gamble with this sword. Not only is he taking advantage of me in terms of value, but he's also giving me a treasure. Meng Luo, do you want to save your face? That cub of a storm leopard can't even chew a steamed bun now. And you want to gamble with such a peerless sword? Luo Ku Di shouted loudly, is that your face or your ass? Fuck. Why don't you become red? Luo Ku Di's words made Meng Luo choke. He had only intended to make fun of Meng Luo. But he hadn't expected that Meng Luo's face would turn red as soon as his voice fell. Luo Ku Di was dumbfounded. He then turned his head to look at Ji Mo. Then he turned his head to look at Dong Wushong. Did you see it? Did you see it? Fuck me. Meng Luo's face has turned red. Motherfucker Awu. This is the news of the past 3 days. Meng Luo's face turned red. He said, bullshit. It's you who took it out for the gamble. It's not like I want this sword. Don't tell me that you're in the right to rob me. Chu Yang faintly smiled. He then waved his hand and said, you guys keep watch for me. Let me experience the skills of one of the 8 great dukes. Ji Mo and Luo Ku Di were the same as Dong Wushong. They knew that Chu Yang must have grasped the opportunity since he had decided to make a move. Chu Yang would never do something that he wasn't sure of. Ji Mo screamed loudly. He jumped up and shouted, beat him up. Trample him. Ravage him. Luo Ku Di shouted loudly, beat him up. Beat him up. Beat him up. Awu ~. Chu Yang's forehead suddenly became sweaty. A strong murderous intention flashed across Meng Luo's face. He looked at Luo Ku Di and Ji Mo, and then returned to Chu Yang. He was secretly vigilant in his heart. This guy is unknown. But his words are so effective against these 2 famous pestering guys. I can't underestimate the enemy. Please. Meng Luo's wrist moved forward, and the sword turned into a white light as he threw it towards Chu Yang. Chu Yang leaned sideways, and gently pinched the sword's hilt with his 2 fingers. Then, the sword light spread out, and a circle of sword shadows spread out like a peacock spreading its tail. Hundreds of sword shadows clearly surrounded him. The sword's real body was firmly grasped in his hand. The tip of the sword was pointed forward. Chu Yang's gaze was affectionate as he looked at the sword's body. He felt that the sword was connected to him. His heart surged, and the sword energy spread out horizontally. The sword point, sword edge, and sword edge of the tribulation sword rushed out of his dantian with a whistling sound. The sword's body flashed strangely, and an awe-inspiring murderous aura spread out in an arrogant manner. Meng Luo felt the formidable aura of the opposite party. So, he didn't dare to neglect it. He suddenly jumped up, and a strange-shaped folding fan appeared in his hand. He opened it in the air with a pop sound, and 8 Meng Luos appeared in the air. They smiled at the same time, and elegantly waved their folding fans. Then, the 8 Meng Luos rushed down one after another, and rushed towards Chu Yang like lightning. It was an empty crown, but it was still dazzling. Chu Yang sneered, come on. His body spun, and the sword light, like an arrow leaving the bowstring, turned into a meteor. He didn't dodge or evade. Instead, he met the enemy head-on. He had forcefully shaken Meng Luo. Chapter 443. The 2 silhouettes came in contact with each other. Then, they suddenly exploded like a bomb, and turned into countless shadows that scattered in all directions. The 2 silhouettes had already transformed into a black and a white radiance in the middle of the field. They then intertwined with each other, and formed a black and white pattern. The 2 empty crowns were rustling and trembling. Chu Yang used the fleeting snow cloud movement technique, and fluttered here and there. His long sword scattered into snowflakes that filled the sky. It seemed as if he was advancing and retreating. Meng Luo's agility technique was fast and precise. The folding fan in his hand was continuously changing. It could be used as a sword, a saber, or a dang. But there seemed to be some kind of connection between the 2. Especially the strange pattern on the surface of the fan, It gave people a dazzling feeling. Dong Wushong, Ji Mo, and Luo Kudi were watching the field attentively. They were somewhat amazed in their hearts. They saw that Chu Yang was dealing with Meng Luo's storm-like attacks with ease. However, he wasn't panicking at all. So, they were somewhat amazed. He was still struggling at the bottom a few months ago. But, he could already contend with a second-grade king-level expert today. Moreover, how could Meng Luo be an ordinary king-level expert? In Dong Wushong's eyes, Meng Luo was a good-for-nothing and a pervert. However, an ordinary second-grade king-level expert couldn't defeat him. Each of the 8 great dukes had unlimited tricks up their sleeves. Who among them didn't have the potential to challenge someone of a higher level? Meng Luo's eyes were looking at Chu Yang's figure like a hungry wolf. He slowly increased the speed and strength of his attacks. He wanted to defeat Chu Yang in the shortest time, and with the least amount of strength. However, he was surprised to find that Chu Yang had also slowed down his speed when he had slowed down his attacks. And, the pressure on him had also increased correspondingly when he had increased his attacks. They had been evenly matched since the beginning of the fight. A cold light couldn't help but flash in Meng Luo's eyes. His folding fan was falling down more and more like snowflakes. He didn't want to expose his trump card. However, Chu Yang had made up his mind. I must force Meng Luo to use his vivid spring dream divine technique. The spectators exclaimed in satisfaction. Even the lazy Ji Zhu had opened his eyes wide, and unblinkingly looked at the 2 men in the field. No wonder Ji Mo recognized him as the big brother. He has some skills. To all the spectators, this battle could only be described as pleasing to the eye. Of the 2 youths fighting, one was dressed in a black robe, and the other was dressed in a snow-white robe. One was handsome, and the other was elegant. Moreover, both of their figures were graceful, their movements free and easy. They left as soon as they touched the ground, floating like immortals. When one of them increased the intensity of their attacks, the other would immediately begin to counterattack. When one of them slightly restrained himself, the other would also immediately begin to defend. It didn't look like a battle at all. Instead, it looked like 2 martial brothers were practicing their martial arts. It also looked like 2 people who had nothing to do with each other had agreed to dance. Every one of them was dancing elegantly. At first glance, they didn't look alike, but their coordination was unintentionally flawless. Ji Mo and Luo Kudi were watching the field. Dong Wushong had already walked behind them. Big brother hasn't used his trump card yet, Luo Kudi whispered. Chu Yang looked like he was handling a butcher's cleaver with ease. Obviously, he hadn't used his full strength yet. Nonsense. Dong Wushong scolded without any trace of politeness. Idiot. Meng Luo hadn't used his trump card. So, how could Big Brother use his trump card? There's something wrong with your brain. Luo Kudi grunted. Then, he said in a low voice, I'm just telling the truth. Ji Mo was somewhat worried as he looked at the field. It's too fast. Such a fast duel consumes a lot of physical strength. Wu Shong, what do you think of the situation? Big brother, there's no need to worry. Dong Wu Shong said with certainty. Moreover, both of them are only testing each other. But, both of them are trying their best to conceal their true strength. They seem to be nervous, but the outcome of this battle is far from being decided. His tone suddenly became serious. You two, open your bird eyes wide and watch carefully. Big brother is showing all of Meng Luo's strength to you. Don't spout nonsense. Ji Mo's eyes froze in anger. Old Wu is your big brother. Dong Wu Shong ignored him, and turned his head away. Chu Yang had clearly calculated that Meng Luo had already changed more than a dozen kinds of agility techniques in the field. But, he was clearly messing up the order now. And, he was still using the same moves. He coldly snorted in his heart. Then, the sword light suddenly rose sharply. One ray of cold light pierced 10,000 fathoms. 10,000 rays of cold light suddenly whizzed out violently. Meng Luo was gobsmacked. He was trying to figure out his opponent's real strength. But, his opponent had unexpectedly launched a strong attack at this moment. He was caught off guard for a moment. So, he shouted loudly, and defended himself with his folding fan with all his strength. Swish swish swish, knock knock knock. Their weapons had never come into contact with each other since the start of the battle. But this time's attack was like the wind blowing on a lotus, and the rain hitting a banana leaf. Meng Luo's folding fan was continuously receiving attacks at this moment. The cold light would always find a flaw no matter how he changed his agility technique. Then, the attack would hit the surface of the fan. And numerous sword holes appeared on this special folding fan at this moment. Meng Luo's folding fan was made of ice silk mixed with 7-colored jade strands. So, it was invulnerable. Moreover, it had a special function. It was tailor-made for the vivid spring dream divine technique. Meng Luo felt as if his heart was being twisted when he encountered this kind of injury at this moment. The surface of the fan would revert to its original state after a small hole was pierced by the sword tip. However, Meng Luo knew in his heart that the strength of this spring dream folding fan would weaken every time a sword hole appeared. So, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. The black silhouettes of the people watching the battle suddenly soared like dark clouds in the field. The black silhouettes were everywhere in the blink of an eye. And Meng Luo's white silhouette was left in the middle of the battlefield. It was faintly discernible in the midst of the raging black silhouettes. Meng Luo, one of the 8 great dukes, had fallen into an absolute disadvantage under the attack of this nameless person. Even his defense was strenuous. However, Chu Yang's heart was shaken. I didn't use my full strength in this move of one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. I only used a small part of my strength. But, even a king-level expert like Jing Menghun would be in a difficult situation if he were to face this move. But Meng Luo had managed to defend against it without any mishap. Chu Yang coldly snorted and said, "Good agility technique. Take it again." He used one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms again. However, he used 70% of his strength this time. Meng Luo let out a muffled groan. His white silhouette flew backwards like a white line. Chu Yang's black silhouette followed him like a shadow. 10,000 cold lights were hidden in his body. He chased after Meng Luo, and circled around the battlefield a dozen times in a flash. The spectators burst into an uproar. Meng Luo, one of the 8 great dukes, was being chased around like a mouse. And the opposite party was still chasing after him relentlessly. The experts of the Meng clan tightly knitted their brows. They exposed a worried look on their faces. It would be a major blow to the reputation of the Meng clan if Meng Luo lost this round. Meng Luo's handsome face had turned into the color of a pig's liver by now. Luo Kudi was beaming with joy as he saw this. He jumped up and shouted, "Good. Good. Spank his ass. Drill his ass. It would be best if you carve the word *** on his ass." Meng Luo crazily shouted. His eyes turned red. He fiercely closed his folding fan, and turned it into a short stick. Then, he suddenly turned around, and met Chu Yang's attack head-on. Chu Yang's black robe fluttered in the wind with a loud bang. Meng Luo rolled out like a rubber ball. His white robe was riddled with holes. And a silver-white light was exposed between the holes, silver-wind jade armor. Someone among the spectators cried out in alarm. Everyone turned pale with fright as they heard this. The silver-wind jade armor was a legendary treasure of the 3 heavens. It was said that it was immune to all kinds of swords and metals. Wearing it was equivalent to having an extra life. No one had expected that such a treasure would appear on Meng Luo's body. Meng Luo slowly stood up from the ground. Blood was overflowing from the corners of his mouth. He slowly wiped it with his hand. Then, he looked at Chu Yang with a sinister look in his eyes. He bitterly said, "Surnamed Chu, you forced me to do this." Chu Yang was stunned. "Fuck. Meng Luo, we've been fighting for so long. Can't you see that I'm forcing you? Do you think that I'm treating you to a meal?" Jimo burst into loud laughter. Dongwu Shong's expression tightened. He knew that Chu Yang was deliberately provoking Meng Luo. Meng Luo's trump card would appear in the next moment if everything went according to his expectations. Meng Luo laughed. Then, he gently opened his folding fan, and fanned it with a shua sound. 3 silhouettes of Meng Luo appeared on his left side with a shua sound. They were waving their folding fans with a smile on their faces. He fanned again, and 3 silhouettes of Meng Luo appeared on his right side. The 7 Meng Luos stood side by side in an orderly manner, as if they were septuplets. They were waving their folding fans at the same time. They were smiling as they opened their mouths. Surnamed Chu, your sword is mine. Even their voices seemed to be spoken by 7 people at the same time. There was a kind of disjointed feeling in their voices. Then, the 7 Meng Luos took a step forward at the same time. The entire space seemed to be distorted. It was filled with a kind of moist feeling of spring. Everyone who was watching the fight, including Dong Wushong, felt as if their minds were in a trance. It seemed as if spring had suddenly arrived in this moment, whether it was what their eyes were seeing or what their bodies were feeling. The air was getting more and more moist. It seemed as if the spring breeze was blowing in a mighty manner. Everything was beginning to recover. Some people had already felt that. It seemed as if the withered peach branches were slowly growing buds. The feeling of spring became more and more obvious as the 7 Meng Luos walked forward step by step. Someone exclaimed in surprise as if he was sleep-talking, "Wow, the willow tree is turning green so quickly. Look, the peach blossoms on this tree, their buds are pink, an illusion has already appeared." Dong Wushong was greatly alarmed. He could feel that kind of realistic feeling. So, he hardened his heart, and resolutely bit his tongue. A burst of heart-piercing pain was transmitted, and his mind finally recovered its clarity. Dong Wushong's complexion turned pale with fright. "I never thought that Meng Luo had such an ability. Fortunately, I'm only watching from the sidelines. I would have been defeated a long time ago if I had been there. There's no movement. There's no sign. But, it can seize a person's mind in an instant. Moreover, there's no exception to this regardless of the level of martial power. Moreover, it can cover a wide range. What kind of world-shaking evil technique is this?" He couldn't help but be even more surprised when he saw that Jimo and Luo Kudi's faces had already become somewhat intoxicated by spring. He pressed his hands on the back of their heads, and a burst of ice-cold energy gushed into their heads. Both of them woke up at the same time, and looked at each other with their complexion changing. Chapter 444. Chu Yang's pupils contracted. At this moment, his extraordinary spiritual sense came into play. He could clearly feel that there was a strange aura pouring into every pore of his body. Meng Luo's every step, every movement, every wave of his folding fan, every gentle smile in his eyes, and the indifferent and genial expression on his face gave people a beautiful and hazy feeling as if they were in a spring dream. Meng Luo's silhouettes had turned into 14. They were walking towards Chu Yang in a semicircle. Everyone seemed to be able to smell the fragrance of the grass in spring. They felt that this world was filled with vitality. Many people had already laid down on the ground that was filled with strange rocks. However, a satisfied and warm smile appeared on their faces. It was as if they were lying on a soft grass that was filled with vitality. This is the kind of spring that I've experienced before. There were several first-grade king-level experts among these people. However, Chu Yang's heart was filled with anger, a burst of resentment. Others didn't know, but he was very clear about it. Meng Luo's husband relied on the plucking yin to supplement yang technique. He plucked the vital yin of countless young girls under the age of 15 to supplement their vital yin. And, he used the hearts of these young girls who had just understood the matters of love. Furthermore, it also carried the beautiful yearning and longing of these young girls towards their marriage. That was the purest dream of a young girl's heart. All of this was to destroy the dreams of these young girls mercilessly in an extremely agreeable way. Using mercilessness as a cauldron to refine the pure and beautiful feelings between heaven and earth, this was the riotous spring dream. In a spring dream, flowers would fall in profusion. A spring dream would leave no trace, and countless beauties would fall in the world. The profusion of falling flowers was the price of a spring dream. This was the origin of the name riotous spring dream god. This was an extremely cruel and inhumane act. Meng Luo has already practiced to this extent. His influence was so great that it was beyond Chu Yang's expectations. It was obvious that at least a few hundred girls had been destroyed by his hand. The killing intent in Chu Yang's heart suddenly rose. In this dreamland that was like a spring dream, This kind of intense killing intent seemed to want to break through the shroud of the spring dream. He wanted to kill this scum. However, he thought about it again. I have just arrived in the third heaven. So, my foundation isn't stable yet. Moreover, the Meng clan is a top-notch clan. So, I might be able to vent my anger for a while if I kill Meng Luo now. But, it would be extremely disadvantageous for me in the long run. Keeping a demon like Meng Luo alive was the most effective weapon against the Meng clan. Chu Yang didn't know that his beloved Mo Qingwu had been proposed to by Meng Luo at this moment. He wouldn't have cared about the Tribulation Sword Master's bullshit plan if he had known about it. In fact, he would have killed this bastard with his sword. But at this moment, he didn't know. Meng Luo felt Chu Yang's murderous intention. His body shook, and he fiercely urged the spring dream. The smile on his face became even more intoxicating. And, his figure became even more confident and at ease. It seemed as if an elegant young man was walking in the spring breeze. A woman would have fallen deeply in love with Meng Luo if she were to see him at this moment. This young man in his dreams has almost touched the beauty of the entire world. But who would have known that in this dreamlike scene, this gentle and refined young man was a hungry wolf that ate people without spitting out their bones? Meng Luo's silhouettes had already expanded to 27. The spring dream aura in the air had become even richer. He had almost arrived in front of Chu Yang. But, Chu Yang still hadn't moved. Meng Luo's eyes had already revealed a complacent look. His murderous intention was hidden. Dong Wushang's heart was burning with anxiety as he watched this. He was about to say something to remind Chu Yang. Chu Yang shouted loudly, "Wushang, look carefully." Then, he suddenly backhanded his sword and stabbed his left arm. Blood spurted out with a puff sound. Chu Yang circulated his sword, and the blood scattered into a blood fog that filled the sky. Meng Luo's complexion changed in an instant. Then, Chu Yang attacked with his sword. The sword light flashed, and stabbed Meng Luo's wrist. The folding fan fell to the ground with a bang sound. Then, the sword stabbed Meng Luo's legs. Meng Luo screamed loudly, and knelt down with a plop sound in front of Chu Yang. This dreamlike scene disappeared in an instant. Everyone came back to their senses at this moment. And, they saw that one of the 8 great dukes, Meng Luo, was kneeling in front of Chu Yang in a distressed state. He didn't need to kneel even if he was defeated, right? What's wrong with this great Duke Meng Luo? Is he begging for mercy from the opponent? Apart from a few king-level experts with exquisite cultivation, the others couldn't clearly see what had happened. Chu Yang exclaimed and said, "Great Duke Meng, what are you doing? We were just exchanging pointers. So, how can I kill you? You, what are you doing? Quickly get up, quickly get up. Why are you kneeling like this? Quickly get up. I won't kill you. I won't kill you." These few words were extremely loud and clear. Apart from a few people who had seen the truth, everyone else exposed a look of disdain on their faces. Meng Luo, you're the successor of a top-notch clan. You're one of the 8 great dukes of the 3 heavens. You're still a king-level expert even if you don't take into account these glorious identities. How can you kneel down and beg for mercy from the enemy without any integrity? You've lost your face. Extremely disdainful. Dong Wushang opened his mouth wide. He had never imagined that this matter would develop in such a dramatic manner. Meng Luo had the upper hand a moment ago. And, Chu Yang hadn't moved at all, as if he was an idiot. But, Chu Yang's sword had displayed its might the next moment. Moreover, those sword strikes hadn't been very fierce. So, Dong Wushang had believed that Meng Luo could have dodged them as long as he knew how to fight. However, Meng Luo had strangely knelt down in front of Chu Yang's sword. Such an earth-shaking change had made Dong Wushang feel as if he was still in a spring dream. He couldn't believe it, and rubbed his eyes. The 10 king-level experts of the Meng clan blushed with shame. Meng Luo was facing them, and Chu Yang's back was facing them. His black robe was fluttering in the wind, and had covered his line of sight. They had only seen the flash of a sword light. Then, Meng Luo had fiercely knelt down. He had knelt down in front of this black-clothed youth. What's going on? How can the young lord kneel down in front of the enemy and beg for mercy in front of so many people? Chu Yang enthusiastically helped Meng Luo up. Meng Luo looked at him with empty eyes. But it seemed as if he was looking into the void. He seemed to be at a loss. Then, he suddenly spoke in a dreamlike manner. How did you know? Chu Yang coldly looked at him. He didn't answer his question. Instead, he said, "You've lost." "I've lost. I've lost," Meng Luo muttered. Then, he suddenly issued a long and loud shout. He turned around and walked away. He walked a few steps, and then turned around again. "Say your name. I'll look for you again. The person who defeated you a moment ago is called Chu Yang." Chu Yang raised his face and looked at him disdainfully. "The person you've just knelt to is also called Chu Yang." Meng Luo screamed loudly. He opened his mouth and spouted a mouthful of blood. His body flashed, and he jumped into his own team. Then, a frightened cry was heard the next moment, and a small figure was thrown out by Meng Luo. Chu Yang caught it, and saw a pair of frightened black and white eyes looking at him. It was the storm leopard's cub. Meng Luo hadn't gone back on his word. He also hadn't dared to go back on his word. "Let's go," Meng Luo ordered. He then took the lead to leave with his tail between his legs. The 10 king-level experts of the Meng clan looked at Chu Yang's face. It seemed as if they wanted to firmly remember this person's face. Then, they followed after him without saying anything. Not only the Meng clan, but all the experts in the vicinity also looked at Chu Yang at this moment. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. Since when did such a world-shaking young expert appear in these 3 days? Duke Chu, this old man has a presumptuous request. Would it be possible for you to clear up this old man's confusion? The one who had spoken was a blue-clothed old man. He was a middle-grade king-level expert. However, he had also fallen into Meng Luo's trap. Fortunately, he was a distance away and didn't indulge in it too much, so he didn't make a fool of himself. Chu Yang replied, "Senior has given me an order. I won't dare to be unwise." That blue-clothed old man smiled happily. He was very satisfied and proud of Chu Yang's friendly attitude. A sense of appreciation arose in his heart. He stroked his beard and said, "Grandmaster Chu, the god that Meng Luo Gong used a moment ago was very powerful. Meng Luo Gong seems to be only a second-grade king-level expert at present. But this old man can't contend with that kind of power." He had only asked what kind of husband he was. He hadn't asked how to break it. He was obviously afraid of offending the Meng clan. Chu Yang had been waiting for someone to ask him this question. He would have explained even if no one had asked. How could he let go of a pillow when he was about to doze off? "Senior, I will explain it to everyone since you have asked. So, I won't confuse you in the future." Chu Yang smiled in a very harmless manner. He looked very open and magnanimous. Luo Kudi and Jimo trembled from head to toe. Someone is bound to get unlucky every time Chu Yang shows such an innocent smile. It seems that the Meng clan is out of luck this time. This kind of husband is called the vivid spring dream god. It's extremely powerful. Chu Yang lowered his voice and spoke in a mysterious manner. However, everyone's curiosity had been aroused by him. So, everyone pricked up their ears to listen. They could have heard him clearly even if he had lowered his voice. This kind of god is extremely evil. Let alone a king-level expert, even an emperor-level expert won't be able to escape death if he doesn't know about it in advance. Chu Yang said in a serious manner, "That's because one needs to pluck the vital yin of at least several thousand young girls under the age of 15 to practice this evil art. And they need to cooperate with each other in order to practice it." Everyone hadn't expected that they would hear such a sensational thing. Not only that, but the consciousness of the young girls who have been plucked must be destroyed. Then, they must become a walking corpse's plaything. And they must be plucked to replenish their yang. Chu Yang slowly explained. He had deliberately left everyone some time to digest this information. The Meng clan has such an evil husband. Everyone was filled with righteous indignation. They angrily shouted. Plucking yin to replenish yang is already evil enough. But Meng Luo has taken it a step further. And his specifically plucking young girls. This is a heinous crime. It has reached the point of insanity. The vital yin of these innocent young girls must be plucked out together with their most beautiful fantasies. Then, they must be refined with an evil method. Then, they will become a unique god. Then, they will use this method to make the enemy fall into a beautiful spring-like illusion. Then, they will be slaughtered. Chu Yang slowly explained, "You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.